FREENBECKY, where connection feels gentle, not loud. In a world that shouts, gentleness stands out. We live in a loud world. Love is announced. Affection is amplified. Connection is measured in visibility, clarity, and proof. The louder something is, the more real it is assumed to be. And yet, somewhere quietly outside that logic exists a different kind of truth, the kind that doesn't shout to be heard. That is where FREENBECKY lives. Not in spectacle, not in declarations, but in gentleness. Freen Sorocha and Becky Armstrong's connection never arrived demanding attention. It didn't crash into public consciousness with intensity or drama. Instead, it settled softly and stayed. And that softness is exactly what made people notice. The first thing people felt was calm. Before fans spoke about romance, they spoke about peace. Watching Freen and Becky together didn't create tension. It dissolved it. Their presence felt steady, unhurried, grounded, like nothing needed to be proven and nothing needed to be rushed. They didn't fill silences out of discomfort. They didn't compete for space. They didn't perform closeness to convince anyone. They simply existed together in a way that felt easy. That ease is rare. And when people encounter something rare, they pay attention. Not because it's loud, but because it feels different from everything else. Loud love versus gentle connection. Loud love demands recognition. Gentle connection invites presence. FREENBECKY never chased the spotlight of intimacy. Their closeness didn't peak when cameras were rolling and fade when they weren't. It didn't fluctuate based on attention or relevance. Stayed consistent. Quiet check-in glance. Subtle shift closer. A shared laugh that arrived naturally, not on cue. These moments didn't beg to be noticed, but once seen, they were hard to forget. Because gentleness carries its own gravity. Why gentleness feels so rare today. Modern culture often mistakes intensity for depth. If it isn't dramatic, it's assumed to be shallow. If it isn't loud, it's assumed to be weak. But anyone who has experienced real connection knows the opposite is often true. Depth is usually quiet. Safety is calm. Trust grows slowly. Freen and Becky reflect that truth back to the world without ever stating it outright. They don't tell people that gentleness matters, they show it. And that showing lands deeply, especially for those who are tired of emotional noise. The way they treat each other is the story. There is no single defining moment in the FREENBECKY story. And that's the point. The story lives in repetition. The way Freen consistently holds space. The way Becky consistently softens. The way both move toward each other instead of away. They don't interrupt. They don't diminish. They don't dominate the moment. They meet. That meeting again and again is what people feel. Why gentle connection resonates with LGBTQ+ fans. For many LGBTQ+ people, love has not always been safe. It has been questioned, explained, hidden, or forced into performance. So when queer fans watch FREENBECKY, what they feel is not fantasy, it's relief. Relief at seeing connection that doesn't need defending. Relief at seeing care without fear. Relief at seeing two women exist together without tension around what it means. Gentleness, in this context, becomes healing. It says, you don't have to be loud to be real. It says, you don't have to explain your heart to deserve peace. Connection without consumption. One of the most striking things about FREENBECKY is how little their connection feels like something for sale. It is not packaged. It is not exaggerated. It is not leveraged. They don't turn intimacy into content. They don't invite audiences to dissect every gesture. They allow closeness to remain what it is. Personal, lived, and unforced. In a media landscape that often consumes relationships, this restraint feels refreshing and respectful. Silence that feels safe, not empty. Their silence has often been misunderstood. But silence, when chosen with care, can be a form of trust. Freen and Becky don't fill the space with explanations because they don't need to. Their connection does not collapse without commentary. And fans sense that. They don't experience the silence as absence. They experience it as protection. Protection of something gentle, something real, something that doesn't benefit from noise. The emotional intelligence behind the gentleness. Gentleness does not happen by accident. It requires awareness, patience, emotional maturity. FREENBECKY's dynamic reflects people who know when to speak and when to listen, when to step forward and when to make room, when to offer support without taking control. This kind of emotional intelligence is rare and deeply attractive, not in a romanticized way, but in a human one. It makes people feel safe just watching. Why fans feel calm, not obsessed. An interesting thing happens with FREENBECKY fans. Many describe their attachment not as obsession but comfort. They don't feel frantic. They don't feel anxious. They don't feel entitled. They feel settled. This is the result of gentle connection. It doesn't activate fear or urgency. Doesn't create emotional whiplash. Creates steadiness. And steadiness is something many people crave far more than excitement. Gentleness as a quiet form of strength. Staying gentle in public is not easy. It means not reacting defensively. It means not hardening under pressure. It means choosing care even when misinterpretation is possible. Freen and Becky do this repeatedly. They do not sharpen themselves to survive attention. They do not withdraw warmth to maintain control. They remain soft. And that softness endures. That endurance is strength. What this connection teaches without teaching. FREENBECKY never positions itself as a lesson. And yet people learn. They learn that love doesn't have to hurt. They learn that intimacy doesn't need chaos. They learn that connection can be calm and still be profound. This learning happens quietly, through observation, not instruction, which is often the most lasting kind. Why gentle stories stay with us longer. Loud stories burn fast. Gentle stories linger. People may forget details, dates, or exact moments, but they remember how something made them feel. FREENBECKY leaves behind a feeling of warmth, of safety, of possibility. That feeling doesn't fade easily. Connection that makes space for the audience to breathe. Watching Freen and Becky doesn't feel demanding. It doesn't require constant analysis. It doesn't create emotional tension. Gives people permission to slow down, to breathe, feel, to imagine connection without fear. And that gift is rare. Conclusion. Why gentleness is what makes FREENBECKY last. FREENBECKY matters not because it is loud, dramatic, or defined. It matters because it is gentle. Because it shows that connection can exist without performance. That love can be steady without spectacle. That presence can speak louder than proof. In a world that keeps asking love to shout, FREENBECKY whispers. And somehow everyone hears it.